The Great Hall of the Galactic Council shined like 1,000 suns. Aliens from hundreds of worlds gathered in a circle of light. Their voices filled the air, talking about one name again and again: humanity. The humans had grown fast, too fast, stronger than anyone expected. They had won battles against empires older than their own sun. Now the council feared what would come next. The prime speaker of the council, a tall being with silver scales, raised his hands. "Peace must be made," he said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Humans seek war, but we will give them peace," he declared. Others nodded, afraid. They believed humans would come to the table once invited. They believed in negotiation. They believed humanity still cared for diplomacy. But far away beyond the blue world of Earth, something else was happening. In a silent orbit above the moon, a giant ship waited in the shadows. It was not a diplomatic vessel. It was a weapon forged from fear and vengeance. Its name was whispered even among human admirals, the Oblivion Spear. It was the deadliest warship ever built by human hands. Created after the fall of the Terran colonies in the Zalith War. Built to make sure no one ever hurt humanity again. Captain Arik Vorn stood on the command deck. His face was calm, but his eyes carried old pain. He had seen Earth burn once, seen cities turn to dust. He had promised never again before him. Screens glowed with orders from the United Earth Command. No negotiations, no retreat, only readiness. Humanity was sending a message. If the galaxy wanted peace, they would have to understand strength first. In the council hall, the debate continued. Some alien leaders spoke softly of human courage. Others warned that humans were too dangerous to be reasoned with. But none of them truly understood what humanity was becoming. The humans were not born from peace, they were born from struggle. Every war, every loss had made them harder, sharper, more united. And now, that unity had taken the shape of steel and plasma, the Council prepared an invitation to Earth. It carried words of hope and promise. "We invite humanity to the grand summit of peace," it read, "to end the conflicts and bring harmony to all sentient life." They expected a response. They expected a handshake. They expected to meet human diplomats in shining suits and calm voices. But what they received instead was silence. Silence that lasted for days. Silence that grew heavier than any weapon on Earth. The skies over New Geneva glowed with ship engines. The Oblivion Spear had begun to move. People across the world stopped to watch. Children looked up, soldiers saluted, no one spoke. But everyone knew what it meant. Humanity was not sending a voice, they were sending a warning. They were sending a symbol of what they had become. Inside the ship, the engines roared softly. Rows of armored soldiers stood ready in silence. The crew worked without fear, every movement trained and perfect. They all knew the history behind this mission. They had lost families in alien wars. They had seen treaties broken, colonies betrayed. This mission was not just about orders. It was about honor, it was about survival. Captain Vorn looked at the stars as the Oblivion Spear rose higher. He remembered the last words of the Earth Council. "If they want peace, we will give them peace on our terms." He took a deep breath. "Engage jump drive," he said quietly, and the stars around him folded into darkness far across the galaxy. The alien fleet prepared for the peace meeting. Beautiful ships, glowing banners, and calm transmissions filled the system. They played music of welcome. They opened channels for communication. They waited for the human ambassador. But what they saw instead was a sudden light. A single massive distortion tearing through space, and from it emerged the ship, black as night, larger than anything they had ever seen. The Oblivion Spear arrived in silence. Its hull carried no flags, no colors, no symbols of peace. The aliens froze. One whispered, "That's not an envoy ship." Another said, "That's a warship." Fear spread through their fleet like fire. Their scanners couldn't measure its power. Its energy readings were off every known scale inside. Captain Vorn stood calm as alarms flashed around him. He knew the aliens were scanning him. Studying, panicking, he opened a single channel. "This is Captain Arik Vorn of the United Earth Command," he said. "There will be no negotiation." His voice was cold, steady, absolute. "This is humanity's answer." The Council fleet fell into silence. For the first time in 1,000 years, the galaxy realized peace was not something humanity begged for. It was something they enforced as the Oblivion Spear drifted closer. Its weapons glowed faintly like a sleeping dragon's breath. The alien commanders could feel the truth settling in. They had invited peace, but humanity had brought judgment. and far above them in the endless black, the stars themselves seemed to whisper, "The humans have arrived." The stars above the neutral system shimmered like distant candles. Countless ships floated in perfect formation, each carrying the flag of a different world. The Galactic Council had gathered its finest fleets to welcome humanity. Peace banners hung in orbit. Glowing softly in the black void, transmission channels opened. Voices of hope and caution filled the air. Every admiral, every envoy waited for the same thing. The arrival of Earth's representative they believed a diplomat would come. Someone calm, someone wise, someone ready to make history. But fate had written a different arrival, and destiny carried it on engines louder than storms. At the edge of the system, a ripple appeared in space. A shadow larger than a moon tore its way out of the void. The stars bent around it like glass under heat. Then the ship appeared, the Oblivion Spear, humanity's most feared creation. Its armor was blacker than space, its shape sharp like a blade meant for gods. No sound came from it, only power, cold and endless. The alien fleet scanned it again and again. Their instruments screamed warnings they couldn't understand. "Energy output. Impossible," said one commander, his voice trembling. "It's draining the nearby solar radiation," another shouted. In seconds, fear replaced ceremony. Every admiral knew this was no envoy. This was a declaration inside the Oblivion Spear. Captain Arik Vorn stood before the viewing glass. He watched the sea of alien ships blinking like stars across the dark. Behind him, his crew moved in silence, precise, disciplined. Every man and woman aboard knew why they were there. This was not war, but neither was it peace. It was proof. A single message written in steel. Humanity bows to no one. Lieutenant Mara Chen approached her captain, her face calm yet uncertain. "Sir, they're sending hundreds of transmissions," she said. "All channels open, all calling for negotiation." Vorn nodded slowly. "They still believe this is a talk," he said, his voice low like distant thunder. "But this is a reminder." Outside, the alien ships formed a wall of light. Dozens of cruisers powered up their shields, unsure whether to prepare for combat or not. The Council flagship, the Eternal Grace, broadcasted one final plea. "This is the Galactic Council. We request immediate communication with humanity's envoy." But only silence answered. Then the Oblivion Spear began to move, its engines hummed with the voice of a storm. Energy rippled through space as the ship advanced slowly toward the alien line. Every scanner in the system spiked. Its gravitational wake alone was enough to make smaller ships drift out of formation. The commander of the Eternal Grace whispered to his aide, "They're not coming to talk, are they?" The aide could not answer, his hands shaking. Because deep down, everyone already knew the truth. The Oblivion Spear stopped just short of the Council fleet. Its front cannons glowed with restrained fury. The aliens held their breath, and then a single human transmission broke through all channels. It was Captain Vorn's voice, steady, cold, and final. "This is Captain Arik Vorn of the United Earth Command. We do not seek war, but we will not be threatened. Humanity remembers what peace cost us. If you truly want peace, understand our strength first." The translation echoed through every ship. Even the bravest among them felt a chill. There was no hatred in his voice, only certainty, and that was what frightened them most. Inside the command chamber of the Eternal Grace, the alien Admiral Vishel turned pale. He had seen empires rise and fall, but never had he seen a single ship radiate such controlled destruction. He turned to his council and whispered, "They came not to negotiate, but to remind the stars who they are." On the Oblivion Spear, Captain Vorn looked out once more. His crew stood silently, waiting for his next order. "Open the observation ports," he said. The armor panels slid aside, revealing the terrifying beauty of the ship's design. Millions of alien eyes stared as energy arched along its surface like lightning caught in glass. The ship was alive with power, yet perfectly still. Vorn took a breath, then spoke quietly to his first officer. "Activate the core's resonance field." She hesitated for a moment. "Sir, that will terrify them," she said softly. Vorn looked straight ahead. "That's the point," he replied. The ship pulsed once, and the entire system dimmed. Light from the nearby star flickered as the Oblivion Spear absorbed radiation for fuel. Every alien sensor went blind for 3 seconds. When vision returned, the humans had painted a symbol in the void. A massive holographic emblem of Earth. Burning bright above the ship, no words, no threat. Only a silent statement. Humanity is here. The alien fleets froze, unable to respond. Some lowered their shields in surrender. Others fled into warp space. Only the Council flagship remained, trembling in orbit. Admiral Vichel finally spoke into his communicator. "Stand down," he said quietly. "There will be no battle today." Captain Vorn watched as the alien ships drifted away one by one. His expression unreadable. "Transmit the message," he ordered. A final signal was sent, short and simple. "This is humanity's answer to your peace." And as the Oblivion Spear turned slowly, its engines lighting the void, the galaxy understood something it had forgotten. Peace is never given, it is enforced. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the stars feared the name of humanity. The system hung silent after humanity's message. The alien fleet stayed still, engines quiet, afraid to move. They watched the black ship drifting like a shadow among stars. No one dared to speak first. No one wanted to wake the monster that had come in peace. Inside the Oblivion Spear, Captain Arik Vorn stood before the control array. His face was carved in calm, like a soldier who had already seen the end. Around him, the crew whispered softly to each other. They had expected hostility, not fear, but Vorn knew fear was only the beginning. "Status report," he said. Lieutenant Chen turned from her station. Her voice steady. "All systems nominal. Reactor core stable, weapons charged at 40%. Vorn nodded slowly. He looked at the star map, glowing faintly in front of him. Thousands of alien ships surrounded them, yet none attacked. They watched, they waited. They prayed this wasn't the start of something they couldn't end. The Council Admiral Vichel finally opened a line. "Human ship. We request clarification," he said. "Are you here to negotiate or to threaten the peace of the galaxy?" Vorn stared at the message for a moment, then he gave a quiet order. "Target the barren moon orbiting the 5th planet." The crew hesitated. "Sir, there's no life there," said Chen softly. "That's the point," Vorn replied outside. The ship's front cannons began to glow. The energy gathered like the heartbeat of a star. Radiation fields twisted around the ship as its weapon core charged. The aliens panicked. "Defensive shields up," shouted Vichel across the fleet. "Do not fire, repeat, do not fire." They braced for impact, expecting the human ship to strike them. But the beam never aimed at them, it shot past. A streak of white light so bright it cut through the system like dawn. It hit the barren moon, and the moon ceased to exist. There was no explosion, no debris, just silence, the celestial body. Millions of tons of rock and dust dissolved into nothing. The void filled with light for a second, then darkness returned. Every scanner screamed warnings. Every fleet commander froze. The power output was beyond anything recorded in galactic history. Even ancient war archives from forgotten empires had nothing like it. The ship had fired one shot and a world had vanished. Captain Vorn turned toward the communication screen. "Clarification," he said quietly. "This is what humanity can do." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't shout. He simply spoke as if stating the weather. This was a warning shot. Vichel stared at the image of the destroyed moon. He felt the tremble in his own voice as he responded. "You could have destroyed us all." Vorn's expression didn't change. "If we had wanted to," he said, "but we didn't come to destroy." "Admiral," he paused, his voice heavy with memory. "We came to be understood." The alien council chamber erupted into chaos. Leaders shouted through channels demanding retaliation. Others begged to surrender before humanity changed its mind. No one agreed on what to do. Fear had replaced diplomacy, and fear was exactly what humanity wanted them to feel. Inside the human ship, the crew stood silently. Many looked at the empty space where the moon had once been. Some felt pride, others sadness. "Was it necessary, sir?" Chen asked softly. Vorn didn't answer immediately. He walked to the glass, looking out into the void. "I saw children die on Vega 9, he said after a moment. "I saw peace treaties burned while our colonies burned with them." He turned slowly toward his officers. "Now they'll remember." In the council flagship, Vichel whispered to his aide. "They're not conquerors." The aide looked at him in disbelief. "What are they then?" Vichel closed his eyes. "They're survivors who learned fear firsthand." As the light from the destroyed moon faded, a new transmission came from Earth. The United Earth Command spoke with one voice. "To the Galactic Council, humanity will not kneel. We seek peace built on respect, not on submission. The days of human blood being spilled for diplomacy are over." Every word echoed through the system. It wasn't arrogance, it was truth spoken like iron. Back aboard the Oblivion Spear, the ship went quiet again. No weapons moved, no engines roared. It floated calmly in the middle of terrified fleets. The ship that ended a moon was now silent, almost peaceful, almost divine. Vorn finally turned away from the viewing screen. "Stand down to defensive posture," he ordered. "Let them decide what peace means now." The crew obeyed without hesitation, and as the ship dimmed its weapons, the galaxy held its breath. Because in that moment everyone knew, the humans didn't need to conquer planets to rule them. They only needed to show what they could do if forced. And now no one in the stars would ever forget the day humanity fired one warning shot and changed the galaxy forever. The galaxy held its breath after the warning shot. The moon was gone, turned into light and silence across the stars. Billions watched the recording. Every race, every empire, every child who could see the sky now knew one truth. Humanity was not just another world. They were a force, a will made of iron and memory. The Galactic Council fell into chaos. Some demanded immediate war against Earth. Others whispered of surrender before humanity decided to finish what it started. Meetings ran for days. Arguments filled the halls. But no one could agree how to deal with a species that could erase a world without hate. Fear spread faster than light. Every planet near human space fortified its borders. Every general asked the same question: what if they come next? In the orbit of the neutral system, the Oblivion Spear remained. Silent, unmoving, majestic, and terrible, Captain Arik Vorn stood on the observation deck. The crew waited for orders that never came. Still no retaliation? Lieutenant Chen asked softly. Vorn shook his head. "No," he said. "They're still deciding if they want to live." He turned to his crew. "Transmit our message again," he ordered. "Tell them humanity seeks no war, but will never kneel." The words echoed through every alien ship. Short, simple, absolute for many races. It sounded less like a statement and more like a warning. Admiral Vishel watched from the bridge of the Eternal Grace. He stared at the human ship that stood alone against 1,000 fleets. He had fought many wars. He had seen fear in the eyes of his enemies, but never like this. This was not madness or rage, it was calm power. The kind that didn't need to shout to be heard. A younger officer approached him, trembling. "Admiral, our fleets await your command," he said. "Do we engage?" Vishel looked at him for a long moment, then shook his head slowly. "No," he said. "We would only teach them what comes after the first shot." The officer didn't understand, but he obeyed. Back on Earth, the Council of Nations watched the reports. For the first time in centuries, every leader agreed. Humanity had gone too far to turn back, but maybe that was the point. The Oblivion Spear wasn't built to start a war. It was built to stop one before it could ever begin. In orbit, hours turned into days. Alien fleets surrounded the human ship but kept their distance. Every scanner, every weapon. Every captain waited. They expected another shot. Another destruction, but nothing came. The Oblivion Spear remained still, its silence louder than any cannon. Vorn stood at the center of the bridge. "Let them make their choice," he said. "If they want to talk, they will, and if they want to fight," he paused, "they will cease to exist." The crew didn't cheer. There was no pride in his tone, only exhaustion. Humanity didn't want this, but the universe had forced it on them too many times. Suddenly a signal broke through the static. It came from the Eternal Grace. Admiral Vishel's voice filled the bridge of the Oblivion Spear. "Captain Vorn," he said, "we wish to open communication, no weapons, no threats." Vorn nodded once. "Accepted," he replied. A shimmering holographic window appeared in front of him. Vishel stood tall, his silver skin glowing under the council lights. Behind him, his crew watched silently. He bowed his head slightly. "Your demonstration has been understood," he said carefully. Vorn's expression didn't change. "Good," he said. "We didn't come for conquest, Admiral. Only recognition." Vishel hesitated. "Recognition of what?" he asked. Vorn looked him straight in the eyes. "Of what happens when peace is mistaken for weakness." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Vishel finally nodded. "I see," he said quietly. "Then perhaps we have all forgotten what strength looks like." The communication ended, and with it the tension across the system began to fade. One by one, alien ships powered down their weapons. The fleets began to retreat slowly. Each world sent word back to the Council. "No battle today." In the shadows of the Oblivion Spear, humans watched in silence. They had prepared for war, but found something else instead. Fear had done what diplomacy never could. Captain Vorn stood at the viewport. "Prepare to return home," he said. "Mission complete?" asked Lieutenant Chen. Vorn didn't answer right away. He looked at the distant stars. "At least for now," he whispered. As the Oblivion Spear turned away from the system, the alien fleets parted like a sea before a storm. No one dared block its path. Every world would remember this day. The day war almost began and ended before the first shot was fired. The galaxy would later call it the battle that never was, but to humanity, it would forever be known as the day they finally listened. Because from that moment on, no one looked at Earth the same way again, and the silence that followed wasn't peace, it was respect, wrapped in fear. The Oblivion Spear drifted silently through the void. Its engines dimmed, its purpose fulfilled behind it. The stars of the neutral system shimmered faintly. The battlefield that never happened now floated in peace. A peace built not by words, but by the memory of what could have been. Captain Arik Vorn stood alone in the viewing chamber. The soft hum of the ship surrounded him. He looked at the empty space where once the alien fleets had gathered. Now only light dust remained, not from battle, but from the gravity of fear itself. He sighed, his breath fogging the glass. "Peace through fear," he whispered. "Not the peace I dreamed of, but maybe the only one we'll ever have." On Earth, cities celebrated the return of their ship. People called it the protector of mankind. Children waved flags. Screens showed the image of the black warship cutting through the stars. News spread across the colonies like fire. No world dared to challenge humanity now. For the first time in generations, humans could sleep without watching the skies in fear. Yet deep inside there was unease, because they all knew what kept the galaxy quiet was not love, it was terror. In the grand halls of the Galactic Council, silence ruled. The alien leaders sat with heavy hearts. The memory of the destroyed moon burned in their minds. They passed a motion in secret. Never again would the Council send fleets toward Earth. Instead, they named humanity the sovereigns of the core worlds, a title that sounded like honor but carried the weight of surrender. They would trade, they would talk, they would coexist, but none would ever test the humans again. Admiral Vichel stood before the Council gathering. His silver eyes reflected regret and awe. "They are not conquerors," he said softly. "They are survivors who learned how to become gods to avoid extinction." The chamber went silent. Every leader understood this was not victory. This was balance restored through fear. Meanwhile, aboard the Oblivion Spear, life returned to routine. Engineers repaired microfractures. Officers reviewed mission data. But something strange lingered in the ship. A presence, a sound, a low echo deep in the reactor core. One of the technicians called it a resonance, others whispered it felt alive. When they asked Captain Vorn about it, he only said, "Some weapons remember what they destroy." And no one asked again. That night, as the ship passed by the edge of the solar system, Vorn stood with Lieutenant Chen on the bridge. "The galaxy will fear us now," she said quietly. Vorn nodded. "Fear keeps peace, but it also isolates," he replied. "We've shown them what we can do, but who will stand beside us now?" Chen didn't answer. Her eyes stared at the stars beyond Mars' orbit. "They'll come to us when they're desperate," she said. "And when that day comes, we'll remind them again, back on Earth." Monuments rose in honor of the Oblivion Spear. A new era began, called the Age of Reverence. But some whispered that the Age of Peace was only the calm before something darker. Because peace earned through fear never lasts forever, some species began to build their own weapons. Others vanished into deep space, searching for power equal to the humans. And far beyond the known systems in the silent dark between galaxies, old machines stirred from ancient sleep. Beacons lit up that had not shined in 10,000 years. In the depths of the Oblivion Spear, the reactor pulsed once more. An energy signature flickered across the screens. Brief but unmistakable, Vorn looked at it and frowned. "That frequency," he murmured. "I've seen it before." Chen glanced at him. "Where?" she asked. Vorn's voice was distant. "In the ruins of the First War, the war we were never supposed to remember." For a moment, silence filled the bridge, then he turned away. "Set course for Earth," he said. "We'll deal with one ghost at a time." As the ship vanished into warp, a faint whisper echoed across the void. It was not human, not alien, not machine. just a voice carried by time itself. They have awakened, it said. And they remember, back on the Galactic Council world. Vishal stood alone in his chamber. He looked out at the endless stars. In his hand was a single image, a human ship. Black and terrible, he spoke softly to himself. They wanted peace. We wanted control. He closed his eyes. And now, we all live under the shadow of their mercy. Across the stars, songs began to spread. Whispers turned into legends. Children of other worlds grew up fearing the name Earth. They called humanity the silent gods, the species that spoke only once, and made the galaxy listen forever. The Oblivion Spear drifted home under quiet engines. No banners, no cheers, only purpose, because humanity had learned one lesson above all others. Sometimes peace is not the absence of war. Sometimes peace is the shadow left behind by power. And in that shadow, the galaxy finally slept, but somewhere, something ancient had opened its eyes again, and humanity's legacy of fear had just begun.